In summary, the current issue with analog horror is that the Zoomers making the thing have never stimmed with a fucking floppy disk, and it shows. Hi, I'm Katie. You've probably watched my earlier videos. If you haven't, they're on the channel. Go watch them. Generally, I focused on Czech stuff and trans stuff, but I'm also an avid watcher of analog horror content, resulting in me having, well, not watched the series directly, but watching coverage of it, like Night Mind, and this fucker should have been hunted by the thing already, Oon. You know who I mean if you are also an avid watcher. And Inside of Mind, that whole circle. Uh, which is why I have begun noticing a worrying trend with analog horror content. I should probably apologize first. Sorry for no videos in 2 months. Getting a job has been a bit overwhelming. I have been busy rescripting the Code Vein video, specifically the goddamn fucking story segment. I'm busy with that, don't worry. Plus, I'm using the excuse of August having my girlfriend here to be lazy. So, anyways, with that excuse covered, that apologies covered, analog horror and the issue there within. If you know, this is edited footage, so you're not gonna see shit. Analog horror is a genre, more of a collection of tropes, focused on using the visuals of analog media to present horror. The more mainstream example, and one of the early ones, would be the anthology collection V slash H slash S, which is supposed to be a collection of tapes, all shown. Another version, well, that would be the Blair Witch Project. You could consider the Blair Witch Project analog horror by virtue of it being found footage. Found footage is one of the main tropes of analog horror, in fact, that you find old analog media, usually VHS tapes, that you then play and present to your audience or explore to figure out what happens, or other old recordings, generally putting itself within the 80s, early to late 80s, early 90s, sometimes even the 70s. And it's usually done by people who were not born during those eras. At least the more recent, more popular things, the people that were born are at the eldest young millennials. So those that did not experience the analog media that they're using, they might have, if their families were poor, they might have still kept an old VHS player that they inherited, and a bunch of old VHSs, but there wasn't as much of a connection to it. I want to say nostalgically. For me, there was, again, because I was poor and I'm Czech, so being in basically Eastern Europe, that limited access to media. It took a while for us to have a DVD player. We didn't have one until I was 8 years old, so that was 2004. And by that time, I'm fairly certain a lot of households in America had VHS players. I mean, I have a girlfriend here who was. I can't really ask you, can I, babe? Because you were born in 2000, so you don't know how it was in 2004 with DVD players, because you won't remember that era. Uh, Nevertheless, that lack of connection allows for them to be very creative in what they try and have those mediums do, but because of that, they don't know what they can do. The thought for this unedited footage really came to me from a Tumblr post that I read like a month and a half back that was talking about a creepypasta. And in said creepypasta, the person says that they put in a VHS tape, then go shower, and when they come back, it's been long enough that it's circled through the menu a couple times. I'll repeat that for you. The VHS tape circled through the menu a couple of times. What's wrong with this picture is that a VHS tape is a physical piece of media. It's a tape. You know, flip books? You ever done one of those flip books things where you have a picture per page and each picture is differently like positioned so that when you flip through the book, they move? You understand how animation works, I hope. So that's flipbooks. The way film works is by projecting what's printed onto that film onto the screen, blowing it through the projector, through the lens. That's still how VHSs function, even though they convert it into a signal that then they show through the TV screen using various cables, but it's still a physical piece of tape that's rolled up in the plastic casing that goes through the machine. And there's, if you look at it closely, you can see the frames of the movie are printed on the tape, and it goes through it one by one, which is why when you finish the tape, you need to rewind it if you want to watch the movie again. That's why a lot of video rental stores always had the Be Kind Rewind tape on it, because that would mean you're saving them the work of rewinding it. Now, VHS is such an old medium that when it was first introduced, a lot of home VHS playing machines did not even have the ability to rewind the tapes, so you'd of course give them back to get them rewound. That's how old VHS is, and that's why they are physically incapable of having a menu on it that is distinctly a DVD function, a function of a DVD being a digital medium of, sure, it's still spinning, but it's looking at dots, at bits, and it can spin them to wherever it wants to read them. You know, it can just go through it, do a spin, and be like, okay, stop here. Yeah, this is what we need to scan. Okay, yeah, we're here. Let's spin it around a bit more. Okay, yeah, we're there. Scan that bit. You know, it's how CDs and DVDs work. Just in different densities, different thicknesses of how much it can cover, how much it can contain in terms of bits, which then determine the amount of data it can hold. So that's how those work. Floppy disks are magnetic, so they can't store that much on them, unfortunately, resulting in a couple uh, quirks of it. And why I said the Zoomers have never stemmed with a floppy, because floppy disks are a very known shape. If you look at a lot of software on PC, what they use as the save icon is an icon of a floppy disk, a rectangle with that little silvery thing that you flick back and forth to expose the magnetic film inside of it. So if you stim with that, you kind of understand how floppies work, and you're old enough to understand the differences in these technologies and what they're capable of and what they're not capable of. It feels like the people making analog horror are not putting in enough research into analog media. I know a lot of people criticize the whole desaturated stretched face thing, which I'm going to try doing for the thumbnail, admittedly, as the joke. The problem with analog horror is not this. It's just a funny thing to meme on. The actual issue, personally, I feel, is the ignorance that's found in the genre now, in the collection of tropes by virtue of nobody having experienced these analog medias that they're working with. Like, come on, Foon is on Tumblr. Just go ask them about the details. Their whole thing is being a reverse engineer on media. I'm fairly certain they have literally every storage medium that has ever been produced. No, yeah, they do have. They do have a couple of those red tapes that you can only watch once and then you can't watch them anymore, and a couple of tapes that were made proprietary for a TV set with a VHS player, or not even a VHS player, with a fucking video player for it that then you'd have to ship back to the manufacturer after watching it once, because movie companies have always been shitty and streaming has given them rights management on a golden fucking platter. So that's why you should do research in analog horror. That's one of the main things about analog horror that's personally an issue. Like, if you understood analog media, you could make it way more terrifying, which partially is why I like the modern revival of digital horror. There was a digital horror boom in the early 2000s with the .com bubble, with movies like Pulse and such, where the horror was there about the internet, but it was made into this unknown eldritch thing. And now people who grew up with the internet are doing nostalgic digital horror, like, oh yeah, the thing in Minecraft, my Minecraft server's possessed, or Roblox is being weird, or this girl made fucked up Flash games and she'd do numbers on trans woman Tumblr in 2023. That's Lacey's games, by the way, if you haven't looked those up. Or like this website with Flash games also had a missing creator. It's stuff that the creators were familiar with growing up. There's still a bit of mystique, but they know more about the digital than they do analog, and so they can channel the nostalgia for it into that horror more than if they lacked it. Still, both of those things can be good, both of those can be very, very fun. Like, Interloper as an ARG is very fascinating as a piece of digital horror, and, well, analog horror, don't think I've watched a piece of analog horror that I was really fascinated by recently. I think it's I think it's been kind of overplayed and it needs a break so that it can catch its breath. And not only that, it needs actual research put into it, into how analog media works. Like, goddamn, imagine if somebody dug up a collection of laser discs with fucked up things on them from some research facility. Can you imagine that? No, you can't. But you don't even know what a laser disc is. It's a vinyl record sized CD. That's what a laser disc is. And now you're fucking inspired. So, thanks for watching. I have a Patreon to support. I'm still working on the Code Vein video. Um, yeah, I definitely still working my way through the Full Alchemist video. Well, is there something else I wanted to cover? It'll probably come to me. Oh, right. And This is unrelated to the topic at hand, but I did promise I'd make a video on Ocarialis when it finished, and it finished, so that's another thing I have to script. You can expect that sometime in September. So, thanks for watching. Leave your thoughts in the description below on what you perceive as issues with uh, analog horror currently. And if you have any recommendations for people that actually understand these mediums and how they differ and how they're used, because I am fascinated to see them actually fuck around with it instead of just, ooh, VHS filter and acting the way it actually doesn't. Ooh, Bye.